It's Monday, March 20. In the headlines and local news, Prime Minister Andrew Holness reveals final 5 packages on the Southern Coastal Highway scheduled to commence in 2023 and to be completed by 2025. In business news, bank shares battered after Credit Suisse rescue. Regionally, Guyana wants more U.S. private sector investment and support. On the international scene, South African opposition party calls for president's removal. In sports, Inter-Secondary Schools Sports Association, ISA, Boys and Girls Champs received just over $80 million towards event expenses. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Work on the multi-billion-dollar Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project is moving steadily. That's according to Prime Minister Andrew Holness. While making his contribution to the 2023-2024 budget debate in the House of Representatives on March 16, he provided an update on Part B and the eastern section of the project. Maya Chung has more.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness said the plight of citizens who have endured significant disruption to their daily lives due to these works is not lost on his administration. The Prime Minister added that the government continues to examine the progress carefully with a view to making changes for better execution. He added that steady progress is being made and already communities are benefiting from the improvement in the infrastructure. He noted that the 17.4-kilometer 4-lane roadway from Harborview to the Yallas Bridge is 87% complete, with practical completion scheduled for April 2023. The PM said that the rehabilitation and resurfacing of 123.65 kilometers of existing roadway from Yallas Bridge to Port Antonio and Morant Bay to Cedar Valley are broken down in 15 sub-project packages. Explaining further, he said that 10 of these packages currently underway are in various stages of completion and are expected to be completed in December 2023. Mr. Holness stated that the final 5 packages are scheduled to commence in 2023-2024 and are expected to be completed in March 2025. Mr. Holness disclosed that over the upcoming months, the National Works Agency, NWA, will be constructing 3 new bridges at a cost of just over $1 billion, which include the Troy Bridge in Trelawney, Craig Mill Bridge in Portland, and the Spring Village Bridge in St. Catherine. The PM told the House that the NWA has already completed the designs and costings for these bridges and is now going through the public investment justification phase before going to procurement. Prime Minister Holness indicated that the government knows that there are many more bridges that need to be repaired and that plans are currently on to design a program to address the general replacement and repair of bridges island-wide, which will be announced in the next budget. In the meantime, the Prime Minister said that through the Chase Fund, a museum will be built in Morant Bay to ensure that current and future generations are, quote, rooted and grounded in the knowledge of our rich cultural and historical heritage, end quote. For news on PBCJ, I am Maya Chung.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness says 15 ecologically sensitive areas, ESAs, island-wide have been identified for enhanced protection. He made the disclosure in his contribution to the 2023-2024 budget debate in the House of Representatives on March 16.
These geographical areas which will have restrictions on the types of activities that may be permitted in order to preserve their hydrological or ecological functions and services.
The 15 ESAs are Industry Cove, Hanover, Bogue and Montpelier in St. James, Winds Morass, Oyster Bay, Trelawney, Bengal, Duns River and Fern Gully in St. Anne, Holland Bay, St. Thomas, Long Mountain, St. Andrew, Palisadoes, Port Royal Protected Area Conservation Zones, Kingston, Shooters Hill, Hellshire Hills, Goat Islands in St. Catherine, Canoe Valley, Manchester Clarendon, Great Bay in St. Elizabeth, and Negril Great Morass, Hanover, Westmoreland. Prime Minister Holness says the declaration of the ESAs will ensure that Jamaica's ecological assets are protected for generations to come.
Low-impact development, such as ecotourism, may be permitted in these areas, but the restrictive conditions and approval from the relevant regulatory authorities must be received.
Mr. Holness notes that to date, Jamaica has protected, under law, more than 25% of its landmass and 15% of its exclusive economic zone.
At the core of these and other initiatives is the call for 30% of our land and marine areas to be protected. And Madam Speaker, I am pleased to report that we will exceed that target, Madam Speaker, and we will do it as early as 2025.
Prime Minister Holness says in the 2023-2024 financial year, the government will be finalizing the overarching protected areas policy, as well as new protected areas regulations under the NRCA Act. Hundreds of farmers in the communities of Flagman, Greenfield, Southfield and Top Hill in St. Elizabeth are to benefit from a US $200 million Pedro Plains irrigation scheme, with which the government is moving ahead. Prime Minister Andrew Holness made the announcement during his contribution to the 2023-2024 budget debate in the House on Thursday, March 16. Mr. Holness informed that the project will be financed through a combination of government resources, grants and loan funding from the French government. He said that through the support of the French government, the government undertook a feasibility study to take water from the Black River and use it to irrigate plains of St. Elizabeth. Prime Minister Holness says that not only is the project feasible, but the team of French engineers have already designed the system and budgeted its implementation. The Prime Minister further informed that the project will be designated a national strategic project. It's time now for the Business Report with Danita Rodney.
In recent times, there has been an increase in the amount of young adults coming forth to set up their own businesses. Youth entrepreneurship can lead to the development of more industries, and as they are self-employed, they often have better work satisfaction. This week, we hear from young boss Kevon Wright. He is doing exciting things in the area of technology.
Hey Google, please turn the main lights on.
Okay, turning the main lights on.
My name is Kevon Wright, a 26-year-old engineer. So my business is Smart Yard Jamaica, and we are a smart property development company. Not just a smart home, but a smart property development. So we do everything. From a simple smart lighting, Alexa can go ahead and turn your light off for you, or we can completely automate your apartment complex that you just bought or you just built. We go ahead and take on a lot of Airbnb work. Yeah, so small hotels, boutique hotels, Airbnbs, when they use a lot of our products such as smart locks or smart switches, the sensors that we use to control the ACs, they not only save on money, but it's easier for them to operate their business. Unique is, I would say, a stretch, but it's very niche specific for now. The systems that we sell, as I said before, it's not limited to a smart home or an office or even a farm. It can be utilized anywhere. It goes as far as the imagination of the person. My business makes your life easier. How many times have you been in bed and you're about to go to sleep and you remember you have to get up to turn the light off in the living room, the light off in the kitchen? How many times have you left your iron plugged in, or maybe you haven't, but you thought you left it plugged in, and you're on the road and you're fretting all day, oh my God, the house is going to burn down. Things like these worry at the past. You can literally just check your phone to see whether or not your iron is plugged in and turn that specific socket off. The public response has been very good. A lot of people expressed to me that they don't know that this tech is here in Jamaica, or they didn't know that it was that affordable to go ahead and, convert an apartment or an Airbnb, whatever it might be. So, but the general public has been very receptive, and traction is growing. This might sound odd or left field, but the eventuality of Smart Yard, I hope, is to have a completely operated smart farm here in Jamaica. So maybe about 50-60 acres, just completely smart operated farm. Agriculture is my little guilty pleasure.
Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Friday, March 17, the US dollar sold for an average of $151.98. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $111.02. The pound sterling traded for $185.53, and the euro sold for an average of $164.73. In JSE trading, the JSE index declined by 2,484 points. The junior market index declined by 15 points. The combined market index declined by 2,454 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 2,977 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 101 stocks, of which 40 advanced, 41 declined, and 20 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Access Financial Services Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica Limited. Stocks declined for AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Cargo Handlers Limited. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Verbal Preference, Consolidated Bakers Jamaica Limited, and Jetcon Corporation Limited. The overall volume leaders were MFS Capital Partners Limited with over 5 million units, Wigton Wind Farm Limited Ordinary Shares with over 2 million units, and Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial with over 1 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Calypso Macro Index Fund was the only active security posting a volume of 100 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Goddard Enterprises Limited was the volume leader with 1,000 shares. They were followed by First Caribbean International Bank, which traded 139 shares. In regional business, in Trinidad and Tobago, Trade and Industry Minister Paula Gopi-Scoon says their government is upgrading its TT BizLink service. Terry and Brown Campbell brings us the details.
According to Minister of Trade and Industry Paula Gopi-Scoon, government has taken another step toward improving the ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago.
In order to improve and modernize these services, the ministry has embarked upon a project to further enhance the TT BizLink software to realize significant improvements in efficiency, in agility, and innovation. The enhancement of the existing services will be available for use by the public by the end of April 2023, just next month.
The Trade Minister said 18 new e-services will be added to the 47 already available on the platform.
In international business, banking stocks and bonds fell sharply as the hit to investors from UBS Group's state-backed takeover of Credit Suisse fan concerns about the health of the global banking sector. Here's more in this Reuters report.
The weekend rescue of Credit Suisse by local rival UBS was supposed to reassure markets. On Monday morning, it wasn't clear if that was working. European stocks opened in the red before clawing out some gains. Banking shares led early declines, falling 4% before recovering some ground. Credit Suisse stock collapsed, dropping around 60%. UBS was down too, losing 4%, with some investors concerned it has merely inherited its rival's problems. The falls came after Swiss regulators engineered a state-backed takeover for Credit Suisse. It's been roiled by years of scandals and recently admitted to problems with past financial reports. University of Virginia law professor Pierre-Hugues Verdier says watchdogs hoped to limit any fallout.
I think there may have been hope, and there may still be hope, that problems are somewhat unique to that institution and can be contained to that institution by an intervention that targets it specifically. But I don't know to what extent this will be proven true by events. Once a large and highly connected institution such as this runs into trouble, there's always a risk of contagion.
Analysts say the concern has now shifted to the huge losses that some investors will face as part of the takeover. Traders also remain anxious over the possibility of further contagion and the fragile state of some US regional banks. Quite how central banks will manage to simultaneously contain inflation and manage the new financial risks is another conundrum. The weekend also saw coordinated action by central banks in Canada, the UK, Japan, the EU and Switzerland to ensure that lenders had plenty of cash on hand. If that was meant to reassure markets and restore calm, the signs on Monday morning were mixed at best.
In market data for oil prices dropped to their lowest in 15 months on Monday, driven down by concern that risk in the global banking sector and the potential increase to U.S. interest rates could spark a recession that would sap fuel demand. Brent crude futures fell 87 cents to $72.10 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude was down 85 cents at $65.89. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, while meeting with a 7-member delegation from the United States, President Ali said Guyana wants more U.S. investors and support as the country heralds in its new era of development. He also called on the U.S. to support Guyana's global advocacy on food and energy security and climate change.
Let me assure you that our relationship with the United States is based on principles. It is based on a value system that we share. It is based on respect. And you have nothing to fear. Guyana is and will continue to be an important strategic partner of the United States, and the opportunities here is open to all and open to the United States and your private sector. And we want to see greater participation from the U.S. private sector and the U.S. here in Guyana. There is no second guessing this agenda. This is a clear strategy of the government. And as I said earlier today, we had the distinct pleasure of examining different issues and challenges. We spoke about our experiences in housing. We spoke about the model in Singapore. We spoke about how we can advance the transformation, human resource transformation, and ensure that the human resource transformation is linked to the infrastructure transformation, healthcare, education. But importantly, we said today that our mission is to catalyze the revenues from oil and gas to position Guyana to function in a world 2030 and beyond that will be very, very different. Ensuring that we are sustainable, ensuring that we are resilient, and ensuring, most importantly, that we are competitive. For us to be a viable state, we must be able to be competitive, and that is what we're investing in. We understand the importance of this relationship. And as you said today, very, very important statement you made. You're one of those countries that stood up when it matters, based on your principles for democracy. And that is important, because you are not a fair weather friend. Your relationship is based on principles and values, and that is what we value deeply. We are working together with you. We can assure you of a government that is open. We are working to advance transparency and accountability. But as we discussed today, we want to apply more technological measures, more scientific measures, so that we remove any discretion from the humans and ensure a system works and works every day for the people. Everything we do in the country must be system-based and system-managed, based on rules and regulations, based on principles. So we cannot do that unless we have the technology and build a system that work every day based on that technology, and that is what we're investing in.
In news from Barbados, severed Barbadian workers of the Caribbean airline Liat will finally receive a substantial severance payment from the government of Barbados. This was announced by Prime Minister Mia Mottley during her Parliament presentation recently.
The government of Barbados will take responsibility for all of the Barbadian workers, and that the government of Barbados will pay up to $75,000 in cash to each and every person in terms of their calculated severance liability, and that any number for severance over $75,000 will be paid in bonds, so that the persons at Liat who have had to endure grave hardship, anxiety, we understand. And believe you me, if I could have done it earlier, I would have done it. The cost of that $75,000 to every person will come just on about $4,074,000, and the bonds that will then have to go to them to make up the difference for everything over $75,000, I believe is in the vicinity, roughly, of just under $6 million. And the government of Barbados, therefore, will make the appropriate arrangements. I have instructed the Director of Finance and Economic Affairs, who is on duty leave at the Inter-American Development Bank meetings, that as soon as he returns next week, he is to meet with the representatives of the Liat employees and put in place the payments.
The Barbados Workers Union is calling on regional government to follow Barbados' example and settle the Liat dispute across the region. BWU Deputy General Secretary Dwayne Paul says while the resolution of the issue was a long time in coming, the union is happy to have fought on behalf of former Liat workers. Mr. Paul also offered a suggestion for a regional airline.
The workers have reached out to the union, and we'll be meeting with them shortly to go through with them the details as we receive them in terms of the process and the payment to be made. The union is cognizant that this matter should not have reached this stage, from the point of view that from the onset, that proper regional discussions would have enabled us to reach a far better position much earlier. We strongly believe that it is time that the region comes together and create, using the smaller airlines that operate within our region, to form a global airline, or should I say a total regional airline that is based on the needs of the region and therefore can provide the benefits to all and not to some. These discussions should be anchored, as I said earlier, in what is really needed to support and guide the region, and not a matter of where the airline would be hubbed or where the airline would be based.
And news further afield, national shutdown, end quote, of the economy has been called for Monday by the radical opposition economic freedom fighters to unseat President Cyril Ramaphosa and end his power. Al Jazeera has more.
We cannot just sit, fold our arms while the country collapses. That is what Julius Malema has said. He is the leader of the opposition EFF party. He wants his supporters and ordinary South Africans to come and protest with him, calling for President Cyril Ramaphosa to resign. He wants also to protest about the economy, the high cost of living in South Africa, and the electricity crisis. Some areas in this country can go for more than 10 hours without power. The police and army have been deployed throughout the country to prevent looting and damage to property. And South Africans are watching these events very, very closely. They don't want to repeat, or many of them don't want to repeat what happened back in 2021 when riots broke out over the economy. Hundreds of people were killed and a lot of property was damaged. But one thing to bear in mind is that it's a long weekend here in South Africa. Tuesday is a public holiday, so many people have taken Monday off on vacation, visiting family and friends. So that could affect the numbers at the protest today.
Harrow, obviously, as we mentioned, rolling power outage is just one of the concerns that the people have there. Has the government been responding to these issues?
Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa has come out and he says he understands that South Africans are frustrated and his government is trying to do all it can to resolve all these issues. He appointed the country's first electricity minister, but critics are saying it's yet another ministry using public funds to do the job of what other ministries should have been doing in the first place. Ramaphosa says he feels that these protests are suspicious in terms of their timing. He says that he feels it's opposition parties who are trying to position themselves ahead of elections next year, trying to weaken the ruling ANC. Some analysts are saying it's more complicated than that. They're saying these protests highlight the huge divisions in South Africa between the people themselves, between different political parties, and as well as divisions within the ruling ANC party. There are people here who feel that since the ANC took over power in 1994, they feel some of those politicians in that party are no longer working for the best interests of the country.
In sports, the media launch of the Issa Grace Kennedy's Boys and Girls Athletics Championships took place at the National Stadium recently, and the handover of just over $80 million towards the staging of the event was carried out. Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Olivia Grange, and Minister of Education and Youth, Favour Williams, joined in the symbolic presentation of a cheque valued at $82 million by Grace Kennedy for the event's expenses. Also present at the handover were Group Chief Executive Officer of Grace Kennedy, Donna Webby, and President of the Inter-Secondary Schools Sports Association, Keith Wellington. Champs will be held at the National Stadium from March 28 to April 1. According to the ISA president, Mr. Wellington, over 100 overseas students from 20 countries will be among those competing at the ISA Grace Kennedy Boys and Girls Athletics Championships this year, which will have its full schedule of events for the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic. In more sporting news, the West Indies led the one-day international series versus South Africa 1-0 following Saturday's 48-run victory at Buffalo Park in East London. It was an impressive win for the regional team with new captain Shai Hope at the helm. He spoke to the media following the match.
New West Indies one-day international captain Shai Hope put in a man-of-the-match performance to lead his team to victory over South Africa. But its opposite number, Temba Bavumba, almost single-handedly took the game away.
The way how cricket plays, anyone can win a game. But it's important for us to stick to our plans as long as we stress that in the little huddles that we have and focus on the little things that we've been working on over time. And we stuck to our plans and we came up victorious in the end. Innings like that deserves to be a victorious innings, but it just so happened that we came out on top in the end, but I must give him credit for the way he patrolled the innings, he played the situation well, and he really deserved to win the game, playing the game, an innings like that. But there can only be one winner.
Despite the win, Hope recognized some elements to be worked on.
I think that we need to be a bit more clinical. We strayed away from the plans a bit, but we're not robots, and we're also humans, so you make mistakes sometimes, but as long as we stay within our game plans and we focus on our lines and limbs a lot longer, it's going to make it a lot more difficult for the opposition batters to score freely. So I think it's important for us to work on those little things and we be a much better bowling unit going forward.
335 is the highest one-day international total by a West Indies team in South Africa. But the captain does not intend to rest on that stat.
It's just important for us to continue improving as a batting group. We've been struggling to bat 50 overs for a period of time, and we've been maximizing the last power play as well. So we just need to continue building from that and never look back.
Looking forward, the third and final ODI will bowl off at 4 a.m. Eastern Caribbean time on Tuesday. Wayne Cunningham, TTT Sport.
And that's the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. Thank you so much for watching.